Game one, shall we, and see exactly what these players have brought to the table. You mentioned that we might get a chance to see Antonio bring out that Lilligant and Torkoal, and there they are. The Geovanni bringing the Lilligant and Torkoal, and there they are. So you know that they're going to be a part of this, and Arcanine and Grimmsnarl, you called it.
You gotta, figure out the best leads for the scariest leads often in team preview. And in this end, I think Geovanni's scariest lead is going to be that Lilligant Torkoal combination. So Antonio does not fall into the trap of, leading something that just gets kind of wrecked by it right from the start. Going with the Grimmsnarl on Arcanine, so this is great utility. You can go for that light screen immediately, which Antonio is opting for. Arcanine here, able to go for so many different attacks. You can go for a fire-type attack into the Lilligant. You can go for those Snarls. And as we've seen Antonio play with this team, it's very, very passive. However, I think playing passively is actually smart here because all you need to do is get a little bit of chip damage onto the Lilligant that's often not surviving more than, a turn or two. And actually, Lilligant goes for the Protect here, so doesn't want to get knocked out immediately, which I think is a smart play.
Yeah, it's going to really preserve that Lilligant for future turns so that Torkoal can really help to be able to kind of make some magic happen for Geovanni's team. But Antonio smartly goes for some damage here, and that's actually a surprising amount onto the Torkoal. Torkoal goes for Yawn, though, and it's right into the Grimmsnarl.
Okay, so I think Yawn was not something I was really expecting to see, but I actually think makes a ton of sense in a position like this, right? Because Geovanni recognizes Grimmsnarl and Arcanine, he just does so little damage against both of those. So might as well put on some pressure with Sleep. Lilligant, of course, gets access to that Sleep Powder as well. So you potentially just, try to put everything on Antonio's, side to Sleep and then just kind of stall out the light screen. But the defensive component of this makes this so difficult. I think Geovanni recognizes that the potential Gastrodon on Antonio's end is actually a very, very big threat. So he wants to conserve Lilligant specifically for Gastrodon, opting to switch out here.
We will see that Lilligant get a chance to be preserved as Grimmsnarl goes for a taunt onto the Torkoal, trying to deny any more Yawns coming through from the Torkoal specifically, as just another Heat Wave doing a little bit more damage, and Torkoal can't use the Yawn after the taunt, so it was a great taunt coming in from Antonio, even though Grimmsnarl gets put to sleep.
Yeah, I think one thing that makes this really tough, too, for Geovanni is that he set up the Sun, but this Arcanine's actually able to do a fair amount of damage with Heat Wave, right? Torkoal's a Pokemon that often doesn't really get great recovery. You can maybe run, one of those recovery berries, but every little bit of damage really matters on it. And these Heat Waves are doing a fair amount. Right now, Grimmsnarl is put to sleep, but it's not like Grimmsnarl was really doing much at this point anyway. I think Antonio recognizes that he doesn't really want to switch out either of the two Pokemon he has in the back, so Snarl comes out just to decrease his special attack. Does get a drop onto or misses the Porygon, but Torkoal just in a really rough spot right now because it just can't Yawn nor will do very much damage.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting as we see the Torkoal go for the Burning Jealousy now onto both Grimmsnarl and Arcanine on Antonio's side, and Porygon 2 just going for Trick Room, just trying to set up for that endgame.
Burning Jealousy, a really cool reveal there on the Torkoal, able to actually get burns off Antonio with Arcanine and Grimmsnarl out right now, when Grimmsnarl being asleep means that you actually can't burn it. And so I think, you can see that Antonio is staying in with the Grimmsnarl because, once again, you really want to conserve both the Gastrodon and Corviknight, which are both great late-game win conditions. And right now, the Torkoal's already taken over 50% of damage, and it's barely done anything in return. So I think Antonio really content to just keep launching, Snarls and Heat Waves out. Geovanni gets the Trick Room up, though, so to me, the question is, what is his last Pokemon? It is going to be the Hatterene, but I'm wondering if maybe you wanted to get a free switch into a Hatterene instead of, bringing it out immediately, especially when it's non-max this turn.
Yeah, what is Torkoal adding in value to this specific matchup, I think, when you're taking a look at how little damage it's able to do, and taunt specifically means you can't Yawn, as we can see Antonio can freely continue to go for these Snarls, getting these special attack drops, and specifically as the Hatterene switches in, that's going to be pretty big in terms of that drop.
Exactly, and it takes, actually a fair amount of damage. I think with Antonio's team, I keep saying a fair amount of damage because any little bit of damage matters, especially when you're playing with such defensive Pokemon like Grimmsnarl and Arcanine. Once again, all you're kind of setting yourself up for is the late game. But I think Geovanni switches out that Torkoal because he recognizes if Antonio brings Corviknight into this matchup and Torkoal goes down, there's pretty much no way to beat the Corviknight with the remainder Pokemon. So what makes this matchup, I think, really difficult for Geovanni is that Antonio correctly has brought the right four Pokemon, especially with Gastrodon and Corviknight, and both Gastrodon and Corviknight are huge potential Dynamax Pokemon in the late game. So, is able to bring the Hatterene out, but with that special attack drop now, makes it a lot, it does a lot less damage. And so what's tricky now is, can you even pick up a knockout, right? You maybe need to go for some confusions with G-Max Smite, maybe pick up the knockout on a Grimmsnarl, at least get the ball rolling there. But it's just so tough to break through this combination of Light Screen and Snarl right now.
Yeah, it really is. Antonio is really safe to kind of continue to just go on the defensive with those snarls and those special attack drops, as Hatterene does go for the G-Max Smite. We saw Porygon 2 go for the ally switch just to be able to switch places, and Grimmsnarl hangs on from that G-Max Smite. You can see how important those snarls and those special attack drops have really become, as it gets the double confusion.
Double confusion, so now, we're flipping some coins every turn. Let's see. Arcanine, with the paralysis actually from earlier as well, not able to attack through. Grimmsnarl was confused, but it is able to get an attack off. Getting that Spirit Break off, but after the ally switch, the Hatterene at least, does not eat another drop. But I think the fact that Grimmsnarl survives there is huge, right? Like, this Hatterene's going to spend most likely 3 turns to knock out Pokemon that aren't even maxed. This Arcanine's barely taken any damage as well, so this is just really, really tricky. A single Snarl or single stat drop into any Maxmon, I think, is tough. But from Geovanni's end, I think basically you need to get as much mileage off these couple of turns. This turn, maybe you can opt for a Thunderbolt into the Grimmsnarl and go for the Max Mindstorm onto Arcanine. You just really need to pick up knockouts now, I think. But that's another ally switch.
Yeah, goes for another ally switch here, just trying to keep that Hatterene as safe as possible, as Hatterene does go for the Max Mindstorm into the Arcanine, but the special attack drops matter so much. Arcanine able to withstand that attack and go for another Snarl.
Yeah, snaps out of confusion as well, and gets the Snarl off, so everything going right for Antonio this turn. And, getting these drops are just so important, because if you look at the Pokemon that Geovanni brought in this game, those are 4 Pokemon that use all special attacks, and Grimmsnarl actually breaks out of confusion as well, gets another Spirit Break as well, so this Hatterene has eaten so many special attack drops. I believe the Light Screen is still up as well. One more turn of max from the Hatterene's end as well, and then Antonio's free to just bring in the Corviknight and the Gastrodon. It's -4 special attack and -3 respectively from Porygon and Hatterene. So once again, Antonio not switching out because he doesn't need to. All he needs to do is get a free switch into Intellor, Corviknight, and Gastrodon, and then max one of those. I think what will be interesting is who do you Dynamax, because Gastrodon, of course, still at, you could potentially eat like a Leaf Storm from the low again. So, all right.
Ooh. Arcanine gets paralyzed here. So G-Max this time going into the Grimmsnarl. That will be able to secure the knockout, but it leaves Antonio with that opening that they really want, which is just the free switch.
Exactly, yeah. Finally gets a knockout there in Geovanni's, and he's got the recover on Porygon, so we could be in for a long one, Rosemary, especially because Porygon is able to just consistently heal with recover. And if you look at Antonio's team, what actually does good damage into the Porygon? If the Corviknight is a bulk up set, that might be it. But otherwise, Porygon actually able, and it does have bulk up. So I think, Corviknight, really interesting option here, because maybe you get a bunch of bulk ups off. Especially with that Lumberry, you don't have to be as worried about sleep powders coming out from the low again. Antonio, though, gonna opt for that Gastrodon right now. So I think the important decision from Antonio's end is who do you actually max, because both Gastrodon and Corviknight still can potentially take a lot of damage. Gastrodon can maybe eat up a Leaf Storm from the low again. That's going to do a ton. Corviknight has to worry about the potential combination of After You and a Fire-type attack. So Antonio has to make decision on who to Dynamax and when to do that. But I think still in a pretty great position. He's able to chip away a lot on Geovanni's end, and this Arcanine probably won't even get knocked out and will, get its berry activated. So Antonio, once again, playing slow and steady and not opting to really go for heavy damage immediately, but he doesn't need to because he's chipping away every turn.
Looks like Geovanni might be trying to go for maybe another setup here now that the Porygon 2 is pretty safe and Hatterene goes for a Protect. But we're seeing that the Heat Wave comes through and just chipping away again at Porygon's health pool, as Earth Power not able to connect through that Protect, and we do see Porygon 2 go for the Trick Room.
Yeah, so Antonio once again saving his Dynamax. I think one really critical component in this format is the ability to wait for your Dynamax until the very late game and identify the scenarios where to actually use it. Gastrodon doesn't really need a max right now. You would be able to get some special defense boosts, but I think because you're not really at much threat of taking damage, Antonio is content to just keep clicking Earth Power and Heat Wave. With Hatterene and Porygon with so many decreased stages of special attack, I think an Earth Power Heat Wave combination might be enough to pick up the knockout after the Life Orb damage. damage from the Hatterene, so we'll have to see. But Geovanni right now still just does not have great damage output this turn.
Ooh, we see the expanding force come through. That's going to be enough to be able to pick up the knockout onto Arcanine. That was actually a pretty big chunk of damage.
It was, yeah.
It does take a lot of recoil from that, but the Earth Power now finally able to connect its mark onto the Hatterene, and ooh, Hatterene does hang on.
This game actually just got a lot more interesting. I didn't think that the Arcanine could actually survive an Expanding Force due to all those special attack drops, but of course Expanding Force with Psychic Terrain and Life Orb, so powerful. Actually able to pick up the knockout there, so that's really critical. I think Antonio was probably expecting to stick around a little bit longer with the Arcanine as well. However, Hatterene at this point is one turn away from getting knocked out, and Antonio, once again, still has his max. Also, importantly enough, Lilligant does not pressure Gastrodon right now because Trick Room is up. So, normally, Lilligant would be a pretty major threat right now. I mean, once again, the big question is when does Antonio actually click the go button and go for a Dynamax? You see as he's not opting for it this turn. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Corviknight probably makes more sense as the late game max option, but especially because the Gastrodon can keep healing up. A critical hit onto the Gastrodon here would be huge, so Expanding Force comes out, but no critical hit.
No, it's still going to be a decent chunk of damage, though, as Hatterene does take its final attack and does get knocked out to the Life Orb recoil. You could see that Antonio was kind of thinking about, do I go for a recover here knowing how much damage I'm going to take from a second Expanding Force, or do I just kind of allow the berry to do its job and try to get as much damage off as possible onto this Porygon 2? But you can see that the damage was what was prioritized, and Corviknight doesn't take very much at all from that Thunderbolt.
No, it doesn't. And now what's really interesting is it gets that bulk off. And once again, Antonio still hasn't gone for a Dynamax yet. So what do you bring out here, right? If you bring out Lilligant, that can just get doubled up and, get KO'd. So it feels like it has to be the Torkoal. So it is going to be the Torkoal. But Torkoal's also taken 60% of damage, more or less, right? We haven't seen its full moveset, so I'm curious if it has Solar Beam. Because if it does, then you can at least Solar Beam into Gastrodon. But with Yawn, Hand-Burning Jealousy, I don't know. And now Antonio is finally clicking the Dynamax button, and I think, looks like he's actually debating between it. But I think it makes a lot of sense because you don't want to take a Fire-type attack from Torkoal. That actually will probably pick up the knockout. So Antonio recognizing, hey, Torkoal is the biggest threat to my Corviknight. If I knock out Torkoal with the Gastrodon, then my Corviknight should be able to 2v1 against the Porygon because it has all these decreased stages of special attack. And Lilligant is not going to do a single thing against Corviknight. So I really like this defensive play, especially if he knows that Geovanni does not have any offense with the Torkoal to pressure Gastrodon. If it doesn't have Solar Beam, then Gastrodon going for Earth Power is a really free play here.
Yeah, after seeing how little damage that Thunderbolt was going to be able to do to Corviknight, I feel like Antonio is really set on just leaving that Porygon 2 to its own devices until you can knock it out in the late game. But you can see that Torkoal is trying to get damage onto this Corviknight, not able to. Gastrodon goes for the Earth Power, and after all that damage that Torkoal has taken, that Torkoal gets knocked out as soon as it comes back in.
Yeah, so I love the decision to max there. And once again, it speaks to Antonio's defensive team, right? He actually went for the max just so he could click Max Guard because he doesn't have Protect on the Corviknight. But that's actually really critical, Corviknight's special defense isn't that great, and a Burning Jealousy would have done a ton of damage. But now Antonio's finally put himself in the endgame that he was looking for this entire time. It's a Corviknight 2v1, or really, I mean, it's 2v2 right now, but Corviknight alone can, probably 2v1 in this position, or 1v2, as long as Porygon doesn't get, critical hit Thunderbolts, and Corviknight still has a bunch of turns to go for damage as well. So, Antonio opting for the double up onto the Porygon here, probably reading into a Protect from Lilligant, and there is the Protect as well.
Yeah, Protect comes through, so Geovanni just trying to play it a little bit safe here, but Antonio, reading this really, really well, decides to go ahead and dish out some damage into the Porygon 2. Thunderbolt comes through and still does very little, but gets the paralysis. So that Lumberry is going to be able to come in clutch to be able to remove that paralysis.
Yeah.
Now Corviknight is able to go for the Max Airstream, and just doubling up into the Porygon 2, reading that Lilligant Protect is so strong for this endgame.
It really is, yeah, and I'm not sure Antonio actually needed to go for that. So what's interesting, though, is that the Thunderbolt did get the paralysis, so you get rid of the Lumberry, so now Lilligant can maybe Sleep Powder or put the Corviknight to sleep. Basically, that changes the dynamic a fair amount, because If you're able to, just constantly leave Corviknight useless, and Porygon can continuously heal itself, and you force it into like a 2v1, and then maybe get a Thunderbolt critical hit at some point, that will do a lot of damage into Corviknight. I don't think Geovanni has enough damage at any point, but it's actually just going to be for the Leaf Storm, which I think makes a lot of sense, especially if you've got that Focus Sash on the Lilligant. You know that you can potentially take a Max Airstream, but revealing the Leaf Storm, I think, not surprising to see there, but that's exactly why Gastrodon's hard to max in this matchup.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why a lot of people aren't bringing Gastrodon at all, because you've got Rillaboom, you have a lot of grass-type Pokemon that are going to be dishing out some heavy attacks, but wow, Porygon just able to go for another recover here.
Yeah, it actually hangs on. I think if you get the knockout there, it's most certainly game over, because there's no way Alolan at -2 special attack can do anything against a Corviknight. But you're actually able to hang on. Lilligant now very curious about what its moveset is. If you have Sleep Powder, I think at this point you just go for Sleep Powder Thunderbolt. There are all these special attack drops on Porygon's end, so now the question is, Timer is actually a really, really big win condition. I mean, once again, I really thought the Porygon would faint from another Max Airstream, so this entire time it felt like Antonio's been in a pretty good position. He still is, but now, Sleep Powder comes out and it does connect, so big question to ask here is Porygon able to maybe get a critical hit at any point? And Geovanni could potentially win this off Timer at this point as well.
Yeah, Porygon 2 not even going for damage at this point, just going to go for the recover to really ensure Porygon 2's success in this late game. As Corviknight is going to be, already took its guaranteed turn of sleep, so Antonio's really hoping that this Corviknight's going to wake up in these next couple of turns to get these bulk ups off.
Yeah, Leaf Storm, let's see how much this does. 121 down to 106. Okay, 15 damage, not bad, but Lilligant's basically, not doing anything at this point other than putting Corviknight to sleep once it wakes up. Thunderbolt, is going to be able to chip away a little bit at the Corviknight as well. Actually does, a fair amount, so, Antonio at this point is actually, I think his biggest opponent is the Timer, because I think if, Timer isn't a thing, he should win this, in the sense that you just eventually wake up with Corviknight, you eventually knock out the Lilligant, but the problem is, especially if that Lilligant has Focus Sash, it'll actually be able to survive a Brave Bird, and then you can just put the Corviknight back to sleep. So once again, that's why that paralysis earlier was a really big deal, but Porygon actually getting multiple Thunderbolt paralyses throughout the course of this set, and getting rid of that Lumberry clears the way for the Lilligant. So Antonio, once again, I think what he wants to aim for is, heal back as soon as you can, knock out the Lilligant, and then force the 1v1 against Porygon as soon as Lilligant is gone. No more Sleep Powders coming out. But yeah, I think Timer is actually a huge win condition now that Geovanni can win off of, because it's going to take multiple attacks to actually knock out Corviknight. It wakes up, opts for that Roost this turn, which I think, is the safer play. But there's only 3 minutes left in the battle.
Yeah, that's not going to be enough time to be able to get the knockout onto both of these Pokemon. Corviknight does avoid the attack, but Trick Room comes through from Porygon too. So, yeah, this is going to be a really tough fight to the end.
It is, yeah. I mean, the Trick Room is interesting, and a Sleep Powder missing there as well. So now Corviknight should outspeed the Lilligant, but Lilligant has that Protect. So with only 3 minutes left in this game, and adding Ally Switch to the mix as well. Are there enough turns to actually pick up knockouts right now? I don't think so. Another Sleep Powder comes out and it misses again.
Another miss. Wow, so Brave Bird gets a chance to get off here from Corviknight, but it goes into the Porygon 2, which is not the intended target for that Brave Bird, and that does very, very little to this Porygon 2.
And the time is just ticking down, Rosemary. I mean, the Corviknight's just not able to do enough damage. The Ally Switch makes this so much tougher as well, because if it did go into the Lilligant slot last turn, at least it would be down to a Focus Sash if it even has it. There's only 2 minutes left now, and now you not only have to call the Protects from Lilligant, you also have to call the potential Ally Switches, and I actually think Geovanni's going to win this game, which is a crazy turnaround, because it felt like Antonio was just in such great positioning, but this is kind of one of the downsides of playing such a bulky team. You need to actually pick up knockouts, and in this game, the Porygon, able to just hang on with a little bit from that Airstream earlier, meant it was so much more difficult, because, yeah, you just get these recovers off. No Ally Switch coming this time around, but I think that makes a lot of sense. There's really no need to, because Lilligant, if it has that Focus Sash, once again, which is the most common item, another Sleep Powder, and another miss!
Misses again. Corviknight's able to get off this Brave Bird, but there's just not enough time to be able to knock out both of these Pokemon, especially after Porygon 2 goes for another recover. It's almost as if that defensive game plan coming out from Antonio so early on is now playing against him in this scenario.
Yeah, and Geovanni ends up on the upper end of it. I mean, once again, there's only 60 seconds left. I just do not think Antonio, has enough damage. Sleep Powder finally connects.
There's Sleep Powder.
I think a sleep out connecting earlier would have just made this game end a lot faster, but I think, you know, at that Thunderbolt paralysis, getting rid of the Lum, once again, making this so much more difficult. And ultimately, Porygon being able to hang on from that, you know, max airstream as well, making this so much more difficult. I think Antonio maybe needed to just target the Lilligant twice and then just play the 1v1 with Corviknight against Porygon. At that point, you know, you do have to be a little bit wary about the critical hits coming out from Thunderbolt, but talk about a turnaround. I mean, I thought Antonio was playing this fantastically, putting himself in a great position. But Geovanni, I think, also making great switches, recognizing, hey, I kind of need Torkoal for the Corviknight, I kind of need the Lilligant for the Gastrodon. So by not giving up that Lilligant early game, able to actually keep it around for a Leaf Storm to knock out that Gastrodon. And I think, you know, at the end, this is kind of the downside of playing with a defensive team like Antonio's. You have to worry about more, you know, RNG and luck being a factor in the game just because games go on for so many more turns than usual. And yeah, Geovanni now, all he has to do is protect. There's no way for the Lilligant to feign, and then Geovanni's going to win off timer because it's 2v1.
You know, at the beginning of the battle, we really thought that it was going to be Torkoal Lilligant that was the pair to beat for Geovanni's team, but it's almost as if Porygon 2 has taken Torkoal's spot on that pedestal in terms of what Antonio's really going to have to target down in this next game.
Yeah, and you can see Antonio just kind of stalling out, or not stalling out, kind of extending the timer just so he can think about, you know, what to do in this next game, because it felt like everything was going in his favor in this early game, and then it was just a complete turnaround, and once again, the main problem is the lack of damage. I think what's really important is basically damaging everything outside of Porygon. Antonio spent a couple of turns targeting that Porygon slot, and Porygon can just heal all of that off. So, you know, had the damage been going into the Lilligant slot earlier, if Lilligant faints, then once again, like Corviknight in the 1v1 at least can go for healing.
So maybe not wait so long in order to actually hit that go button, but let's go ahead and get into game 2 and see where this game takes us. We've had a long one for a game 1, probably in for another one, so buckle down and get comfortable in your seats. But wait a minute, Geovanni.
It's Drapion!
Giovanni's bringing Drapion.
Oh, I love it, and I think this is such a smart adjustment, actually, because, you know, Torkoal kind of just did nothing in the early turns of that last game. You can get a yawn off, but you know, now the Grimmsnarl can taunt you as well. And there's the Dracozolt in the back from Antonio's end, so both players making a lot of really, really cool adjustments. And I think Geovanni going for the Drapion because it pressures with super effective poison type attacks into the Grimmsnarl. So, you know, want to really see what kind of Drapion set it is here. It could be potential, you know, set similar to like Crit Togekiss, where you get critical hits with Scope Lens and all these high crit ratio attacks. So let's see. I mean, I love that adjustment, and I think Antonio, however, also prepared for it, recognizing I do not want to just eat up a poison type attack turn 1. I'm just going to switch out. So it's a revolving door of Pokemon to kick off this game immediately as players switch everything out.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a kind of like all offensive pressure here from Geovanni, especially as Arcanine goes ahead and goes for the Will-O-Wisp. It does connect onto the Drapion, though. So that's going to be one leg up for Antonio as Drapion goes for the Cross Poison and right into that Grimmsnarl slot. So Gastrodon going to be able to take that pretty well, even though it was a critical hit.
The Will-O-Wisp makes this so much tougher, though, onto the Drapion. And I think, you know, now it's actually kind of on a timer as well. That's not a Pokemon that's going to Dynamax. A really interesting option is considering maxing Gastrodon right now. You know, Antonio didn't go for it last game because he had to respect the Lilligant that was in the back. Looks like once again he's not going to opt for it. But, of course, because he's got the Dracozolt in the back this time around, you know, can totally understand why he's a little bit more wary, because it's very, very hard to bring a Dracozolt and not max it, especially because it's very unreliable outside of max. So both players, you know, you're going for these defensive switches, and, you know, Snarl able to reduce the special attack as you've seen against all these special attackers. Porygon doesn't mind that too much, but, oh man, it might be a long one once again, as I think for Antonio, it's all about when to bring out the Dracozolt and when to just pick up a knockout every turn with it.
Absolutely. It's definitely going to be a revolving door of Pokemon as well for the next couple of turns, I think, as both players are looking to posture themselves to be able to actually use their Dynamax. Earth Power goes into what was the Hatterene, which is now the Porygon 2. So just getting a little bit of damage off right now. Really, really smart call from Antonio, recognizing that Drapion might have gone for the Protect there. Yeah,
exactly. And I think, you know, Drapion is actually not doing very much right now, which is why Antonio is actually not very worried about it. You basically keep out a Pokemon that's useless for your opponent, and you're able to basically attack around it. So I will say I'm a little surprised to see Earth Power go into Porygon this turn, but I think, Antonio probably just doesn't want to actually do any damage onto Drapion, because he probably enjoys the fact that it's basically relatively useless. Reveals the taunt, though, so another critical move revealed there, as Earth Power just targeting Porygon once again. By targeting Porygon, though, you can get special defense drops, and you also force it to recover eventually. However, now Grimmsnarl not nearly as threatened as it was in the early games, and I can now potentially set up screens with, Reflector Light Screen, and that's going to extend the game a lot longer as well. Once again, what's tricky about this is that Antonio has to respect that Hatterene, right? Hatterene, especially if it Gigantamaxes, threatens the Dracozolt immensely. So it's all about waiting for Trick Room to maybe stall out, chipping away at Porygon, and then bringing Dracozolt out to the point where it can maybe just pick up a one-hit KO onto the Porygon.
A lot of different decisions and a lot of different things need to be able to go right for Antonio in order to be able to stall out the Trick Room and potentially have to stall out this Hatterene. But Ally Switch comes through from the Porygon 2, so switching things up just a little bit here on Geovanni's side, as the Earth Power, though, goes into the Porygon 2 again. This is really going to force Porygon 2 into a position where it's going to have to click that recover, as Drapion takes a Spirit Break with a crit, too.
I don't think I've actually ever really seen like a defensive Grimmsnarl do so much damage there. Of course, the critical coming out, and the taunt now coming out, making Grimmsnarl, a little less effective. Of course, only carrying one attack here. But, what's tricky now for Geovanni is I think you pretty much have to click the recover button. Otherwise, like an Earth Power and a Spirit Break double up actually might knock out the Porygon. And Porygon was such an important win condition for him in the last game. And I think Antonio, now recognizes, hey, Gastron actually could be a really, really good max option once again, and he's considering it, but it's just so tough because once again, if you commit to it, the Dracozolt is just so much less effective in the back there, but it looks like Antonio does want to commit to it this time around, and if you get these special defense boosts, maybe you can survive a Leaf Storm in the late game if there's even a Lilligant in the back. But, there's a decent chance that Geovanni didn't even bring the Lilligant because I think Torkoal is like a, more likely fourth Pokemon option. Maybe the Urshifu as well. I think it'd be weird to see Lilligant given the 3-let Geovanni has brought. So I think Antonio's recognizing that potentially and just going for a Max Quake, start getting those special defense boosts, making it so much more difficult to knock out. Exactly like how we saw him play with it in the bracket stage.
Gonna have to play a very defensive game here, as now Hatterene gets a chance to switch in, and Antonio actually really calling this well, being able to posture the Arcanine in as well, just seeing how those Snarls have really been able to help get those special attack drops and really keep things safe, as Gastrodon being able to click this Max Quake is going to be really helpful as well. So Max Quake now getting a chance to fire off, and it is going to find its mark into the Porygon 2. Oh! It doesn't get the knockout!
This is why Porygon 2 is so good. I mean, in both games, it survived with like less than 5%, and there's the recover as well. Able to just heal all of that damage off. Oh my goodness. And I think, this is the downside of using a more defensive team, because once again, Porygon can just heal all of that damage off. So, this time around, though, Antonio does get these special defense boosts, and once again, if Geovanni does not have Lilligant in the back, how do you actually deal with Gastron after it gets a couple of boosts off, right? I think it's pretty tricky, yeah. But I think great awareness to go for the recover there on Porygon. You have to go for it. I love Antonio's decision to Max Quake and just go for the Dynamax there as well. I think if you pick up the knockout onto Porygon, this game is looking really, really good. But even without the knockout, it's still not looking terrible. You can get more special defense boosts with Max Quake. Gastron's still really difficult to knock out, and Hatterene, won't be able to do too much. So a big question now is Antonio able to actually attack through these confusions?
The confusions are going to be kind of the big question mark right now, but I definitely think that this game has certainly gotten a bit longer now that Porygon 2 has been able to stick out on the field and go for the recover. Gastrodon confused, still able to go for the Max Quake, so we'll be able to connect onto this Hatterene. Still dishing out a pretty significant amount of damage, but that's the second special defense boost that we've seen this Gastrodon get. And Arcanine as well, being able, as the supportive partner, is going to be able to really help out with this.
There's another recover coming out from Porygon. It is at full HP, so let's see if Arcanine's also able to break through. That would be huge. Gets the Snarl off. Looks like it's going to miss the Porygon, but hits the more important target in the Hatterene. So, the combination of getting a special defense boost and a confusion, or attacking through the confusion, and then also getting a special attack drop makes it so much tougher. So Antonio actually able to attack through both Pokemon very, very critically. So now even if Antonio, hits himself in confusion with this Pokemon this turn, I think it's a lot less worse than it would have been in previous turns because he's gotten all these increased, stat boosts.
For sure. I mean, we saw the Hatterene target down the Arcanine before with the Max Mindstorm, but it's really not doing very much anymore after these special attack drops have come through, and the special defense boosts from the Max Quakes have really helped out this partner in Arcanine. But now it's time to see whether or not we can roll the dice, and nope, no dice this time. It is going to be getting confused as Porygon 2 goes for the Thunderbolt into the Arcanine, and now it's time for
another
and paralysis.
No, oh wow. My goodness, I feel like really this is VGC 2013.
Yeah, if it wasn't going to be the paralysis, it was going to be the confusion. So
exactly. This is just kind of a crazy set, but the chances of getting a paralysis when you click the Thunderbolt button so often aren't exactly that slim. It's just, Geovanni's been getting them maybe a little bit earlier than expected. So Arcanine is able to stab out of the confusion here, despite the paralysis, still faster. Gets another Snarl off on the Hatterene, so Psychic Terrain is up, but I don't think it'll be able to actually pick up a knockout onto either Pokemon right now. Gastrodon actually also able to stab out of confusion, so that's actually really critical. If it hits itself in confusion there, and, G-Max Smite, is able to get a lot of damage there. Critical hit potentially could just even knock out now, but now Max Mindstorm coming out, targeting the Gastrodon, and yeah, not enough to pick up the knockout. And it's really important to conserve this Gastrodon right now as another Trick Room comes up.
Ooh. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a long battle for both of these players, but I think it's really important that we're getting into some really big power turns for these players. I especially now that the Gigantamax is over and the Dynamax is over respectively for Geovanni and Antonio, now it's really about, how are you going to be able to knock out your opponent here? Hatterene sitting at 50% or a little bit less than 50%, and after all the special attack drops and after the Gigantamax says, you know what, I think it's time to reset that, brings the Drapion back out onto the field as Gastrodon goes for a recover.
Yeah, so Gastrodon recognizing, hey, I have all these special defense boosts. I just need to stick around on the field as long as possible. And so, once again, the big question that I have is, what is Geovanni... Oh, and the burn comes out, too! Burn. Oh my goodness, just everything happening in this game. I think, for example, once again, if Geovanni does not have that Lilligant in the back, Gastrodon basically can 3v1 at this point. However, this is kind of a similar win condition to that last game, and as we saw, timer is actually something that Antonio has to be very wary of. This time around, though, he hasn't really taken any knockouts, or none of his Pokemon have gotten knocked out. He's been able to do a lot of damage, and once again, the goal is to prioritize Porygon's partners. You're not doing very much against the Porygon, but as soon as you knock out that Hatterene, you'll figure out what that last Pokemon is. If it's going to be that Torkoal, well, good luck beating Gastrodon at that point. So I think for Antonio, it's just really important this time around to not only have one Pokemon down, but here's Expanding Force, so, finally getting rid of those special attack drops, we'll be able to do a lot, and, Gastrodon takes a fair amount, but Arcanine survives here as well.
Yeah, that's a huge survival. With the berry as well, that means that Arcanine's going to be sticking around on the field for just a little bit longer. Gastrodon does go for the Earth Power into the Hatterene, which is enough to get the knockout. So that's going to be a second knockout confirmed for Antonio and one step closer to this endgame. Porygon 2 going to avoid the Snarl. So going to be able to get that Thunderbolt off, but look at how little damage that's doing now.
Yeah, I mean, last time around, Arcanine's fainted, and I was thinking maybe it was in range of potentially surviving, given all the drops, but this time around, yeah, it's Torkoal is the last one. There's no way to deal with the Gastrodon. Gastrodon, pretty much just walls the entire team after getting this special defense boost, so I think we're going to see Antonio win this game most likely. I mean, I don't even see how you damage the Gastrodon at all, unless, Geovanni actually had Solar Beam this entire time, but he didn't go for it in the last game. We saw the Burning Jealousy, we saw the Yawn, surely it has Eruption as well, and there's the Eruption, so I think the Gastrodon at this point should be able to just stall things out. I think all you have to do on Gastrodon's end is make sure you stay healthy. Earth Power is probably a 2-hit KO onto the Torkoal. As soon as you knock out the Torkoal, then there's no way Porygon can deal with everything on Antonio's end, and if anything, if the game goes to timer, we'll see Antonio win off timer this time around. That's so much damage from Earth Power alone.
Yeah, it's going to do so much to the Torkoal, even putting it within knockout range with a critical hit from the Snarl. So Torkoal's going down after just being able to get off one Eruption, and now it's up to Antonio's team versus the Porygon 2. Porygon 2 against the world right now.
Yeah, and this time around, Geovanni does not have the one win condition to beat the Gastrodon, which was that Lilligant, opting to gamble and bring the Drapion instead. I'm so excited to see Drapion, but in the end, Antonio recognizing that Gastrodon is a very, very critical Pokemon to bring into this matchup. So yeah, I think like this time around, Timer is not in Geovanni's end, especially because he doesn't even have a way to hit the Gastrodon for any damage. So we'll see if he wants to drag it on. Looks like it is just going to be a forfeit there immediately. So all right, well, let's just get into this third and final game. I am really, really excited. I think Lilligant might need to come back from Geovanni's end. And Dracozolt didn't even end up making an appearance. And there's the Lilligant and Urshifu. Okay, this is definitely a different adjustment, but I like it a lot. And Antonio feeling comfortable with this Grimmsnarl Arcanine lead. I think that makes a lot of sense too. It's very, very safe. It covers for all these different options. Once again, you can set up the screens with the Grimmsnarl and just go from there. But with that priority taunt as well, able to stop those sleep powders, which I think is a great option. So Antonio just playing it safe right now with this lead, and there's really no reason to deviate. I'm very curious to see what he brought in the back. I think like it is gonna be the Gastrodon Dracozolt once again. So this time around, given that Geovanni's opted for a little bit more offense with the Lilligant and the Urshifu, potentially we could see a Dracozolt Max, which I think would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see a Dracozolt Max, just because Dracozolt's such an interesting Pokemon, especially with that hustle ability. You're not going to be falling victim to those accuracy drops if you end up Dynamaxing the Dracozolt instead. So really excited to see whether or not that comes to fruition. But to kick things off, we are going to see that rotating door of Pokemon as Gastrodon comes out onto the field. And in the face of a Lilligant, that seems super, super risky to me. But we did see the taunt try to come off, so I'm hoping that maybe the Lilligant was going for a sleep powder or something like that.
All right, let's see. Urshifu maxing is very exciting to see, though. I think a complete turnaround once again, and I think Geovanni recognizing I need more offense this time around. So pushing the go button with that immediately, and taunt, coming out here. If Lilligant makes like the insane read of Leaf Storm and Gastrodon, I'm just gonna lose it right now. Oh my goodness!
Oh
Wait,
my
did it target it? Oh, what a Grimmsnarl!
Oh my gosh, that would have been absolutely insane if that had come through. But Lilligant targets down the Grimmsnarl with the Leaf Storm, and oh my gosh, what?
I think, great awareness once again, and Geovanni knows that the Grimmsnarl has taunt, right? These players have access to each other's team sheets, so saying, you know what, there's no reason, I might as well just go for damage, and I mean, if the Leaf Storm went into Gastrodon, that would have just, picked up the knockout immediately. But I think Geovanni still ends up in a pretty good spot. You get a lot of free damage off immediately on turn one. You get that Max Knuckle boost onto the Urshifu, kind of negating the Intimidate as well. But I think Antonio now wants to consider just switching back out onto the Arcanine. That's exactly what he's opting for. Get another Intimidate off, get those screens off as well, stall out the Max, and then you can Dynamax the Dracozolt in the late game this time around.
Gonna be definitely seeing that Dracozolt come into play. We didn't get a chance to see it last game, but maybe this time around we will get a chance to, as Drapion now comes onto the field. So Geovanni gonna be able to reveal that third Pokemon that they've brought to this matchup as Arcanine comes back out onto the field and crucially gets that Intimidate off onto this Urshifu. So I think this is gonna be a really interesting next couple of turns, as we do see Grimmsnarl get a chance to go for the Reflect as well. So all these physical attacks coming through, just really negating the Max Knuckle boost that Geovanni has been able to give to their Pokemon.
Yeah, this is cool though. Drapion ends up coming out and gets that attack boost as well. So Drapion actually may be able to be a little bit more offensive this time around. So once again, I think Antonio's goal is to just stall out these 3 turns of Max. Being able to get that Reflect off and cycling in Intimidate is already great. And yeah, with Will-O-Wisp pressure with the Arcanine, I don't think Urshifu actually threatens with a knockout onto it right now because of the Reflect being up. So you can burn the Drapion to make it a lot less effective, and then basically play for the Dracozolt endgame. By conserving Grimmsnarl, you can go for late game taunts onto the Lilligant so that it can't go for sleep powders as well. So I really like the defensive position here. Will-O-Wisp is going to connect. That's actually very, very critical, I think, because if you miss there and the Drapion's able to, say, knock out the Arcanine, you lose your Intimidate and Will-O-Wisp user immediately.
Absolutely. We are going to see Geovanni's third and final max attack be another max knuckle. So really just trying to make sure that they can go on the offensive with these attacks, as we do see Drapion go for the cross poison, but now that it's burned, it's going to be doing so little damage as Gastrodon gets dropped to a little bit below half here. Even though that critical hit comes through, there's the berry to be able to get its health back up.
Yeah, so slow and steady wins the race once again. And, you know, I think what's really, really critical is normally when you are using Max Knuckle, you ideally want to, like, boost yourself beyond just the neutral stage, right? But the cycling of Intimidates and Burns and Reflects makes it so difficult to actually really capitalize off these attack boosts. So now Antonio has successfully stalled out the Gigantamax, and more importantly, he's still got that Dracozolt waiting in the back. All you need to do now is basically get a free switch and into that Dracozolt. I think with Reflect being up for so many turns as well, it's really difficult. Will-O-Wisp comes out. It does. Ooh. It does miss. Okay. And Close Combat actually picks up the knockout.
Yeah, there's that free switch that you were talking about. Antonio is going to be able to get that now as Geovanni's Urshifu does go for the close combat into that slot. So Drapion just trying its best through all of the damage. Able to actually do quite a bit, though, to Gastrodon as Earth Power going to be able to fire off here and secure the knockout for Antonio.
Oh my goodness. I mean, Will-O-Wisp miss, first of all, onto Urshifu. I think very, very critical. If you don't miss there, you'll probably survive the close combat in the subsequent turn, and then you also, break the potential Focus Sash there on the Urshifu, if it's carrying that. So once again, Antonio's still playing a little bit more passively because he's just waiting for that free switch into the Dracozolt. But one thing he does have to watch out for is, stalling out his own turns of Reflect. He's taking a lot of damage on Grimmsnarl and the Gastrodon right now, but this is an interesting turn, right? Lilligant's revealed that it has Protect, so do you just go for the save Taunt onto it? Does Lilligant just opt for, Leaf Storm? Because I think, Geovanni might just want to go for damage, pick up a double knockout here, and then play, basically, the 3v1 against Dracozolt. There's Leaf Storm, but... Oh, it misses!
Oh, it misses! Oh my gosh! That's actually huge! Gastrodon being able to survive here is going to be super, super critical to be able to fire off yet another attack as... Antonio gets a free switch again to be able to bring in this Dracozolt finally as Earth Power comes through, and that does a hefty amount of damage to Urshifu.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a huge miss. If you connect there, you just pick up the knockout, right? And then it's Dracozolt basically playing the 3v1, and then what Geovanni could do, it's still actually really interesting because I actually think Dracozolt could basically 3v1 in this position because even if Gastrodon goes down there, what you do after taunting Lilligant is probably just go for Max Lightning onto Urshifu the next turn. That sets up the terrain, and then Lilligant is absolutely useless. So now even in a better position because you get all that free damage onto Urshifu and you have another Pokemon around. So I think Antonio was actually comfortable playing with Dracozolt in this endgame because if you look at Geovanni's team, there's just not much great damage against Dracozolt, especially after it goes for the max. And of course, the Will-O-Wisp missed the Urshifu earlier. I think if that connected, would have been very, very difficult for Geovanni to actually win this one. So both players getting a critical miss here. But now we're finally going to see Dracozolt come out in this set. We've seen so many different unique Pokemon throughout this best of 3, and I think Dracozolt is ready to just pick up some big knockouts.
Oh yeah, I definitely think this is the time for Antonio to put the pressure on and make sure to try to secure some of these knockouts. As Gastrodon plays it a little bit safe, we saw Antonio select Gastrodon to go for that Protect here as Lilligant actually goes for the Leaf Storm into the Dracozolt. So just trying to get out some damage onto this Dracozolt before Dracozolt's able to fire off some of these attacks. Close Combat comes through. And of course, because of Urshifu's ability, we'll be able to get through the Protect, so Gastrodon's going to take a knockout here, and it leaves Antonio with just Dracozolt left. Let's see how much this Max Lightning is able to do to this Urshifu. Yeah.
It's going to destroy it.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most overextensive damage we've ever seen. But, I think you go for the Max Lightning there because you need to prevent Lilligant from actually getting Sleep Powders off. That was what enabled Geovanni to win in the endgame of that first one. So now this Lilligant is, not doing very much damage with Leaf Storm. It's also taunted and the terrain is up. It's going to be Torkoal as the last one. So once again, does Torkoal actually have any other attack to really hit the Dracozolt? Is there an Earth Power? Because At this position, Dracozolt, I think, should be able to just pick up a knockout cleanly onto both Pokemon. Lilligant can go for an after you, but what do? After you Burning Jealousy, maybe? You cannot get sleeps off, and that's why setting up the terrain was very, very essential. And yeah, this is, once again, I think, like, Antonio was probably content just playing with the late-game Dracozolt, recognizing that as long as he stalls out the max, Dracozolt very cleanly sweeps through. But Torkoal is going to offer the Protect, which I really like. Don't want to just eat up a one-hit KO immediately.
Absolutely. Trying to stall out these turns of Dynamax and maybe hope for a couple of those hustle misses once this Dracozolt is out of its Dynamax form. As Max Quake comes through, goes into the Protect, and does a decent chunk of damage.
Yeah, a decent chunk, but not enough. So, Torkoal with the Protect there doesn't even have a way to hit the Dracozolt. Sometimes you see Earth Power, so if there's Earth Power, you could go for something like after you Earth Power. So, Taunt wears off now, but Dracozolt has one more turn of Max, so I think you can just go for a third Max Quick onto the Torkoal, and I think Torkoal might have to hope for a double Protect here. If you get the double, at least you can maybe go for, like, after you and Burning Jealousy. And like you mentioned, yeah, going for, hoping for some hustle misses in the late game is going to be critical. Oh, but looks like Lilligant's just actually off for after you immediately, doesn't try to go for the double here.
Torkoal goes for Eruption, maybe hoping that that's going to be a little bit more damage than the Burning Jealousy, as Dracozolt able to fire off another Max Quake, and with no double Protect here, Torkoal's not going to be able to take that one too kindly.
No, it's not. So at this point, it's Dracozolt against Lilligant. If Lilligant gets some critical hits with Leaf Storm, then might have a shot. It's actually, close, because this is Hustle Dracozolt we're talking about, right? It only has an 80% chance to hit its, even its most accurate attacks. So if it has, let's see, I don't remember if it had Aerial Ace. It doesn't have it. Okay, so yeah, you're forced to offer that Dragon Claw. So, Lilligant wants to stall out the terrain, maybe hit a Sleep Powder, and then try to get a critical hit onto Leaf Storm. Leaf Storms are doing so little damage now that Lilligant's at, I believe, -4 special attack. You've got those Max Quick boosts on the Dracozolt as well. So yeah, opting for the Protect, you just stall out the terrain and then try to Sleep Powder and then, get a crit with Leaf Storm in this endgame, or hope for a lot of misses from Dracozolt.
Yeah, absolutely. And also stalling out, the Reflect is helping for the physical moves, but you're just trying to stall out as much as you can of the utility that Antonio has really set up here. But it's time to just go ahead and go for those Leaf Storms. And look at how little damage that's doing.
It's not very much. So let's see if the Dracozolt's able to connect. It gets the Dragon Claw off. That is huge. And there's the Focus Sash on Lilligant. So Geovanni is still in it, but it is just looking at so much slimmer now. Terrain, however, is gone. So you could maybe try to opt for a Sleep Powder now, and then hope for multiple turns of sleeps, hope for a critical hit. Sleep Powder comes out, and it connects! Okay. Oh my goodness.
Wow, this game just got a whole lot more interesting.
It did, yeah. I mean, a bit, both players are playing with inaccurate moves. I think, it's still more in Antonio's favor. But now, let's see. Antonio just needs to wake up and hit one of his attacks. Of course, with Hustle, the accuracy of Dragon Claw is decreased to 80%. Here's the Leaf Storm. You're gonna need a critical hit. If not, you're slowly chipping away. 48 to 40. That's only 8 damage. Dracozolt stays asleep, though. I mean, now what's also interesting on Geovanni's end is, do you go for a Protect? Hope the Dracozolt wakes up and then just put it to sleep again? Not gonna offer the Protect, so just going for Leaf Storm. Oh, do we see a crit? No crit yet. Oh, this is so great. It stays asleep.
Still fast asleep. Not gonna be able to fire off any attack, so Antonio at this point is hoping that this Dracozolt wakes up to be able to get this final Dragon Claw off, but Lilligant is continuously firing away at these Leaf Storms, hoping that it's gonna be enough, but Dracozolt wakes up.
Does it hit? Oh, it
does! Dragon Claw!
I thought Lilligant maybe wanted to Protect there, because I think Dracozolt, it hangs on with 6 HP. I mean, Dracozolt would have won in that 1v1 anyway, but